So I'll probably sit like this. Because I feel like that's...
I'm probably gonna sit like this.
Okay, yeah. Like, you have a dress on. Okay, let me see.
I got this dress at Costco yesterday. It's
you
so
did?
comfortable. Yeah, and
It's
got
super
pockets. Where were they?
They were like right here. I think I pushed them back. Okay. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay. And yours. Is this too close?
No.
Okay. This thing that you're most proud of yourself.
My marriage.
In what way? So, I decided to bring Hannah on my show here because I absolutely love your transformational story of how we have been friends for over a year now?
Yeah.
Like a year and 3 months. I met Hannah because I was going through a super hard time, and I actually like prayed to God, like I need some godly friends. And this was like last summer when I felt like I was going through depression, and so shortly after that prayer I joined Hannah's life group, and so her and her husband run the life group that I'm in. It's like a Bible study, and so that is how I met Hannah. So I decided to bring her into my living room on the couch so I could ask her about her life, because her story is truly amazing as well, just from where she was to where she is now. So let's get started. Right now, you are happily married with little baby. And how old's Oliver?
He's gonna be 6 months next week.
Oh, big.
I know.
So, but this was not always, you're living like the happy ending or like the fairy tale. This was not always the case.
Oh my gosh, no.
So, was it even slightly like this, or was like, no,
complete opposite.
So, okay, in your family, you grew up, they were like Christians.
Yeah, my dad was a pastor.
Okay. And so you grew up under like that umbrella. So you did.
I was very sheltered.
Okay. Give me examples.
I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter. I wasn't allowed to watch Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, pretty much anything on Cartoon Network I just couldn't watch. We didn't even have cable for most of my life. Like I never went out to parties or anything. I was in private school for half my school career, so just extremely sheltered. I really didn't have any friends besides who I knew at church. So,
okay. So no cussing, drinking.
Nope, none of
those
that.
are not allowed. Were you allowed to have a boyfriend?
Yes, I could have a boyfriend.
Okay.
Yeah. There were a lot of boundaries. We couldn't be like under a blanket together. We couldn't be in a room with the lights off. Couldn't be in our room alone.
Okay.
Couldn't be home alone.
So your parents actually gave you boundaries.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Talked about it and stuff. Because I know with my family, it was just like, don't have sex, and that's it. And
Well, that was one of them. But yeah, there were a lot of things to prevent that from happening. So.
Okay. So like literally, they would like, you guys couldn't shut the door, or
Yeah, we couldn't even go in my room by ourselves.
Now, because you got into, both you and your husband Kevin were in dysfunctional relationships prior to meeting each other. Just talk about like what you kind of went through with, because you weren't really living a Christian life, even though you knew God, believed in God, you kind of strayed away from the faith.
So I never really felt like I connected with the Lord ever. I just had what my parents like forced me to have. That sounds bad, but like we had to go to church on Sunday, and I never wanted to.
Right.
And so I remember them asking us one day, I was still in high school, and they were like, hey, when you guys move out, are you still going to go to church? I was like, no. Why would I? I don't like going. So, what was the question?
So, okay, you just really didn't want anything to do with God, and
No.
So...
Oh, you asked me when it changed, right?
Yeah, well, like your dysfunctionalness that you kind of got into with guys. Like, was there something in your heart lacking as to why? Were you just mad at God, or you just didn't want Christianity was so pushed on you, you just want to turn away from it completely and kind of do what you wanted for a while?
Yeah, and I think it was just always forced on me, so I never really felt a connection to it. It was just always something I had to do, and so, like, I'd rather sleep in on Sundays than go to church.
Right.
At least not now, but like when I was growing up. So, just going through that, and yeah. So.
Okay. And you met a boy.
Yeah, we met.
Or was it a multiple string of
every
men?
single? Well, I mean, I've had a few serious boyfriends before my husband, but they were all toxic. And the first one was like about 4 years. It was all throughout high school, and it was extremely toxic.
Did your parents like notice this stuff? And
Oh,
want
yeah.
you to get out of it?
Oh yeah,
You're like, I don't care what you think.
They hated him. It was extremely dysfunctional, like verbally abusive, and it ended up getting physically abusive at the end. It was just so much manipulation, so many mind games. He tried to like do spiritual manipulation, like God wants us together, and like if something bad would happen, like my dog was really old and she passed away. He's like, that's a sign from God what happens when you leave me. I was like,
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And like, were you knowing this was crazy what was happening, what he was doing, or you were just used to his behavior?
I started noticing it, and my mom would point it out too, because like when he would come over, he would lay on our couch and not speak to me the whole night. And I'd be like, come on, you said we'd go get ice cream. And he's like, yeah, I said we would, not when. And my mom's like, Hannah, are you kidding me?
I'm having flashbacks right now.
Yeah, well, he kind of turned me against my family because, so I have 2 younger brothers, and I just kind of felt like my parents favored them because, I mean, they both played basketball, and so my parents were always at their games, and I just didn't feel supported by them, like, for my sports, and I was in show choir, I just didn't feel like I got the same level of support from them that my brothers did. And so he took that and just ran with it, and he's like, they don't love you like I do, they can't support you, they can't protect you, I'm the only one who can take care of you. Dang. And so I realized it was crazy, but he had like just spoken to me so much, like, we're gonna get married, like, it's just us, you know, we're meant for each other. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, that sounds good. I believe you.
Right.
So.
Okay. And how long did this go on for, this relationship?
4 years.
Okay.
I broke up with him when I was in college. I was a freshman in college. And then it got worse because I met this girl at my job. I worked at a sporting goods store in the mall. And she introduced me to alcohol and drinking. Because I had like a beer. I didn't think it tasted good, so I didn't really do anything. And then I got drunk the first time with her, and like after I broke up with this guy, I hadn't been single in 4 years, and she was single too, and so we would like go on Tinder dates and like just go meet all these guys together.
That's the perfect app to start out with.
yeah. I was just excited to be free, so we just did really terrible things.
So you had broken up with him,
yeah,
and you started doing all this stuff. Was he still trying to contact you during this time?
He was. I actually blocked him because he was just being crazy. Like, he made a fake number on, like, WhatsApp or something and texted me and was pretending to be someone that was interested in me. And I don't know how I figured it out, but, yeah. Being friends with that girl helped me get away from that. I think that was the only positive thing that came out of that friendship with her, but I definitely, being friends with her, introduced this dark, toxic, aside from the abusive relationship I was in, like, my lifestyle turning, like, complete opposite. So, honestly, when I was around her, I felt like I could see dark figures, like, watching me through the window or something. Yeah. I just felt darkness. And so, yeah, I hadn't really had friends before because I was so sheltered, and so I was just so happy to have someone that wanted to be my friend.
Right.
So, yeah, it was bad.
That's crazy. I mean, when you speak on darkness, like, it's real. Like, we live in this physical realm, but there's definitely spiritual things happening all the time. And I know you and me have talked about, like, who you choose, like, around you, and, like, just your influence. Like, it really does matter.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And same with, like, when you were hanging out with your ex-boyfriend, like, you do just start to, like, because I've been in abusive relationships in the past, just, like, you get numb and you're not aware of, like, really all the darkness that's around you all the time.
Yeah.
After you, like, blocked him and everything, did he still come after you after that?
No, I never saw him after I blocked him.
Okay. So did you go through any type of, like, was it easy to just move on? Or did you go through a bunch of stuff? Like, were you using alcohol to cope?
No, I wasn't using anything to cope.
Okay.
Well, I guess I was using Tinder to cope. So,
was it?
I I'd like go meet all these guys, and it was so abusive that he never told me I was pretty. He actually told me like I was ugly all the time, and just all horrible things just constantly tore me down. And so, meeting these people online, suddenly people are telling me I'm pretty, and I didn't believe them for the longest time. Like one guy in particular was like, just told me how beautiful I was a lot, and I was like, what? I've never felt beautiful.
Yeah.
Probably ever. It had been a really long time. But
so you were like rejecting like his compliments because past guy, all he did was tell you how ugly you were. So you believed that at that point.
I believed that because I struggled with acne in high school, and I still struggle with it, but he was just like always pointing out my flaws. So I just started going out on random online dates, and I think my friendship with that girl, she was so toxic, it blinded me to things with these new relationships that I would have otherwise ran from. Like, she did drugs and she smoked, and so when I met a guy that did that, I'm like, oh, I'm used to it. She does it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm used to being around people who do that. And so that started a whole string of just bad relationships all over again.
Okay. So when you were going on these dates, were you actually dating them for long periods of time, or just like going on dates?
It was pretty much just going on date. Usually I would ghost them after a while. Like Tinder, some of them are really weird. Most of them are weird. So
yeah, if you're ever going to go on a dating app, don't go on Tinder, because unless you're literally trying to get one thing, I recommend Bumble. But what was I going to say? Oh, I've even been on Christian Mingle, and it was a bunch of weirdos on there, so don't go on Christian Mingle either.
Tinder was the only one I did. I did meet one guy that I really liked, and we dated. It was serious for me. It wasn't serious for him. I figured that out later, because one of his friends was like, so how long have you guys been dating? And he's like, oh, we're not dating, we're just hanging out. And I was like,
oh, blow to the heart.
Yeah, and we were together for maybe 5 months.
And he still was like, no, we're just friends. Yeah. And you guys had kissed, I'm assuming.
We did everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not living for the Lord. I was being rebellious. I would tell my parents that I was going to stay with my friend. Her name was Shelby, just so I could stop saying my friend. So, I'm going to go stay with Shelby, and then I go stay with him. And so.
Okay, so how long did your life feel like it was kind of like spiraling in dysfunction before you started to like pivot in a more godly way?
Years, because I didn't feel like I was spiraling. I just thought, I'm just living life. This is normal, just going from relationship to relationship. So that guy ended it with me, the 5-month Tinder guy, and I was working at a bakery in my town, and I met a guy there, and we were together for 3 months, and he's like, hey, my job's going to move me to Kansas City. Do you want to come with me? And it's like, no, I don't. Thanks for the offer, though. And he's like, well, what if we...
Because you lived in where at the time?
I lived in Ohio. I'm in a really small town. So he's like, well, I'm going to go to Kansas City, and I want to go without you, and I want to marry you. So let's get married and go together. I'm like,
so he gave you an ultimatum.
Okay. Pretty much. But he proposed before we went. And
smart
he
guy.
actually asked my parents for their blessing, and they said no. And then he asked them more than that. He kept going for it, and I think he just wore them down. They're like, okay. But, I mean, obviously, he was a salesman, so he knew all the right things to say. Mm-hmm. So I ended up coming with him to Kansas City, and that's when it got really bad because, I mean, obviously we didn't get married before we went, so I knew that living with someone before I'm married was not right, but I didn't care. Right. But my parents weren't happy about that, and so they ended up kicking me out before I left, and so I lived with one of my best guy friends for a month before I came to Kansas City.
Did your parents kick you out?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They kicked me out.
Because they were just so, like, we're not okay with your behavior, like, love you, but no, this is not okay. Were they mad that you were moving to Kansas City for this guy, too?
They were really hurt.
Okay.
And it was really, really, really bad. So, yeah, they kicked me out. And because they're just like, we're not going to support this. You know you're doing the wrong thing, so we're not going to support it at all. And they had co-signed on a car with me, and they're like, we're not letting you take our car to Kansas City. So our name's on it too. What if something happens? And so, like, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a place to live. And so...
Did you get, like, mad at them during this? Like,
oh, yeah.
Furious? Okay. Or were you just like, whatever?
Honestly, that part, that whole, however long, it was multiple months where we weren't speaking, but that is, like, the thing I'm most ashamed of is that time with my family. Just how I was so angry and bitter, honestly, my whole high school life, and then it just kept building and getting deeper, and I was a horrible person. My demeanor was just nasty.
It's so mind-blowing you tell me this, because, like, when I met you, it's just, like, complete opposite. And so you always tell me, like, these stories, and I'm like, what?
The Lord saved me. He completely redeemed me and turned my life around. So, yeah, I came to Kansas City, and that's where I realized, like, oh, okay, I need the Lord now, because that guy so we were engaged, we moved here, a few months after we got here, he had stopped doing drugs, so I decided, I'm not comfortable with that, actually. But
did you try any of them, or?
I thought that if I smoked weed with him, that he would love me again, because he had told me he didn't love me anymore. And he resented me because I didn't want him to do drugs, and, like, he just stopped coming home. So I was, like, abandoned in this big city, and I didn't know anybody at all. And I felt so alone, so I was like, maybe if I do it with him, then he'll come home and he'll love me. And that just made me feel worse. That just made, like, I just felt a huge hole in my heart, and it made it even bigger, and I honestly wanted to die. I didn't want to be alive, because I'm like, nobody loves me. I don't know anybody here. And I'm just, like, turning on myself. Like, everything I believe in, I'm just not even following it. So, I was working in another bakery, and Pastor Danny was the pastor of Life Church Overland Park for a long time, and he moved to Kansas City to launch Life Church. And the first week he came to Kansas, Life Church hadn't started yet. He came into the bakery and gave me an invite card. And so I kept his card, and I just put it on my fridge. And I was like, when I get a Sunday off, I'm going to go. Because I just knew that I needed the Lord. I don't know how else to explain it. I had never felt that before, but I knew the only thing that would fix it was the Lord. And so I ended up talking to my family again. And so it wasn't like the relationship wasn't healed, but we were at least on speaking terms, because we hadn't spoken in a long time. Mm-hmm. And I told my mom that, like, hey, I feel like I really need to get reconnected with God, but I work every Sunday, so I can't go to church. And so that little church in my town had CDs of each sermon every week, and so she mailed me a bunch, and I just listened to them on repeat. Because I had a really old car, so I couldn't connect my phone to it and, like, listen to YouTube.
So it had a CD player?
Yeah. Yep, I listen to CDs all the time.
I used to have a Volkswagen Beetle, so
yeah.
I had a CD player too.
Yeah, so when I ended up finally getting a Sunday off, I went to Life Church, and it was like the Holy Spirit wrapped around my heart as soon as I walked in. I'm pretty sure I cried the whole time. Mm-hmm. It was exactly what I needed, and I've never been the same since then. Like, I got rebaptized, and I was able to leave that horrible engagement. One of the pastors let me live with her for a little bit, and then longer term I was able to move in with another family at the church until I could find my own place and, like, save up and get another place. So the Lord used Life Church to save me.
That's awesome.
And to heal my relationship with my family. Because we're even better today than we've ever been. I call my mom every single day. So
that's awesome. And you said it was, like, multiple years that you were, like, going down.
Yeah, it was, like, high school until I was 22. So it was, like, 4 or 5 years.
Okay. And you, like, wrong relationships, bad men, like, did you feel like your self-image just was, like, tanking, like, just getting lower and lower?
I had zero self-confidence. Yeah.
Okay. So this is what is mind-blowing to me, is just, like, okay, that's where you're at mentally. And then somehow you and Kevin get together, and they're, like, the most amazing, godly couple that never fights or anything. Okay, so tell how you meet. So did you do anything, like, self-development-wise, or, like, okay, so you were listening to CDs, which is, like, renewing your mind on the Word, so that, like, boosts your self-image. Were you doing anything else to, like, personally develop or anything like that in that process?
I started surrounding myself with other like married couples at church and just people who could mentor me. And so they really spoke into my life and just gave me a godly example of how I should be living. And I had that my whole life. I mean, my parents have been married for 30 years, and like we prayed together every night, and I see them reading their Bible every morning my whole life. So I knew what I should be doing. I just hadn't been doing it up until now. Mm-hmm. And so just removing that toxicity from my life, and just, you know, deciding to solely focus on the Lord. And those people, they really helped me, like inviting me over for dinner and helping me move and just everything. It was just community constantly pouring into me and like building me up and telling me what I could be and what they saw in me.
So it kind of like just purified your soul, like being around good people, seeing good examples. Mm-hmm. Were you entertaining any like toxicness still at that point, or no? It's just like
yes,
okay,
still was.
Yeah, still in the back pocket.
Yeah, so I actually met a guy at Life Church, not Kevin.
Okay.
This was the guy I was with before Kevin, and you know, you think you meet someone at church, oh, he's got to be perfect. The Lord, obviously, we're meant to be together because I met him at church. He's got to be great.
Which, disclaimer, okay, because I ran into this multiple times.
There are still monsters at church.
Yes. Even if they say they're a Christian, you still have to examine them just like you would someone that's maybe not a Christian. So
I think it's worse if they are a Christian because they know the right things to say.
Yeah. Actually, I was just in a situation like this not too long ago, so yeah, because I've been in situations where faith is literally used against me. Like, my faith has been attacked. Like, that whole, what that guy said to you of, the Lord said that we're supposed to be together, like, so they're, like, just saying, like, they have possession over you. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa, hold up here. I make my own decisions, too.
Yeah.
So, continue.
Yeah, so, I ended up getting together with this guy. We only really, like, officially dated, boyfriend and girlfriend, for maybe a month, because I thought he was awful and I couldn't stand to date him any longer. But he was like, he had been my best friend, and so I just was like, when we would break up, like, now I'm alone. Like, I mean, I have these other couple friends, but they have their families. I can't hang out with them every day. And so I would just feel so alone and, like, miss my family, and so I'd start talking to him again. And we never officially dated again, but, like, we'd still kiss and stuff. So I tried to get away from him 3 or 4 times. But aside from, like, me feeling lonely, he had suicidal depression, and so, as well as being spiritually abusive. Mm-hmm. And so, like, he'd say he's gonna kill himself and it's my fault, or, you know, just, and Ty got into it too, but it was awful. And so I just felt like I couldn't get away because, you know, he'd say, it's all your fault that I'm gonna kill myself, and so I just felt trapped, and so...
Because you wanted to leave him. You
just,
like,
yeah.
so
I couldn't stand.
Was,
I couldn't stand him, but I felt really guilty because he wanted to kill himself, and I didn't want to. If I could stop it, I was going to. So during this time, I started doing the internship at Life Church. I did the part-time one in the summer, and when I was going through that process, I felt so convicted to get away from him, and I knew that I needed to, and so. I did the summertime one, and then I applied and got hired on full-time as a full-time intern. And so during that time, I started attending another life group, and those leaders really poured into me and actually encouraged me to start my own after they relocated to launch another life church. And so I felt like I should start a life group for a long time, but when I was with that guy, I just felt like nobody's gonna come, and plus if he's there, like, nobody else is gonna want to be there because he's there. So
scare away.
He is not a good guy. So I did end up starting the life group, and I was able to get away from him finally. I just blocked him because I just couldn't take it anymore.
So how many times have you tried to, like, pull the suicide card?
So many times.
How many times?
No, it was so many.
Like over 20?
Oh, absolutely.
And like just call you, like...
He would call me crying and hang up, and then call again and hang up. It's just like...
And every time you'd go race to where he was.
Yeah, because I'm like, he's going to kill himself, and there's no one there to stop him. I'm the only one that knows, so I go.
And when you would get there, would he, like, still be all upset?
Yeah.
And, like, so he still... Like, do you think he was acting, or he was being serious?
I think a little of both. He was just extremely sick and unstable. and I got tied up in it, and I just felt like I couldn't get away. And so launching my life group, I felt even more convicted. Like, if I'm going to be a leader, I cannot be caught up in this. So I cut him off, and whenever I was leading the group, I was like, Lord, please don't let me get feelings for any of these guys in our group, because like I just want to focus on you and focus on who I'm becoming and who you've called me to be. I don't want to have my identity caught up in a guy anymore. And
mic drop.
That's how I met Kevin.
And that's how you meet him, because you're like, I'll just focus on God, and then they show up.
Yeah, so because I've always been like the person who's left out, and I don't want to say neglected, but like I've never had friends, and so I was always the person sitting by myself. So that's how I got a lot of people in my group, was like if they're sitting alone at church, I'd invite them to sit with me. And so I know I've told you this before, but I saw Kevin sitting by himself, and I was doing the internship, so I was also like working at the same time that I was in the service. And
okay, so hold on. You go to church.
Yeah.
You're kind of working, but you're going to the service?
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin also, give backstory on him. He had just got out of a dysfunctional relationship when he was in that church service?
So he had been engaged like a year or two before we met, and it was really toxic. And he was able to get away from her, but then he had like a series of just
flings.
Yeah, nothing really serious. And so actually one of those girls invited him to church, and that's how he found Life Church. And so even after they broke up, he still kept going.
Have you sent her a thank you letter?
No. No.
Thank you for delivering my man.
Yeah. Thank you for being my husband.
And you saw him?
Yeah, actually this reminded me of another part that I forgot to mention. So when I was doing the internship, I started thinking, why am I still in Kansas City? Like, I don't have any family here. Why don't I just move back to Ohio? And
because you came just for this guy.
Yeah, so I was like, what's the point? I mean, I'm killing myself working. I was working 2 jobs and trying to just pay my bills, and I'm living by myself. I'm like, this is awful. I have no family here. I miss my family like crazy. Why am I still here? But I felt like I was supposed to stay, and I didn't know why. And Life Church did this series called LC Playlist. It was one Easter weekend, and it was like they would have one of the Life Church pastors perform. It's one of the popular songs nowadays. The sermons, the song they featured was A Million Reasons by Lady Gaga, and Pastor Craig at the end of the song was like, I don't know who this is for, but the Lord wants you to know that he wants you to stay here. Like, you've been thinking about leaving, you've been thinking about giving up, but he wants you to stay right where you are. He wants you to stay here. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay.
Did you stand up? You're like, that's for me?
No, I gasped so loud, and people were like looking at me because I knew he was telling me to stay, and I just didn't know why. And so through leading the life group and everything, I was just like, okay, maybe this is why I'm staying, because I'm like supposed to lead a life group and work at Life Church. I just didn't know. And then I met Kevin. I was like, I was supposed to meet my husband here.
Was it that service, or?
No, it wasn't that service. It was actually a couple years after that.
A couple of years?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Okay.
After he told me to stay. So I had heard that sermon, and then it was probably another year before I started the group.
Okay.
And so, yes, back to that Sunday when I met Kevin, I had come out of the auditorium into the lobby. I don't know what I was doing, but I saw him, and I was like, he's cute, but I'm not going to invite him because I'm going to be distracted by him.
He's
and
too hot.
Yes, I don't need to be distracted by a handsome man.
You gotta focus on the Lord.
Yeah, I was like, he's so handsome, he's going to have someone come sit with him. There's no way he's here by himself. So I came back in to the auditorium. He was still by himself. I was like, okay, that's weird. And so by that time it was the walk-in song, and so I went up to my seat with the group, and the song ended, and I looked back, he's still by himself. I'm like, what the heck? And then the first worship song starts, and I look back, he's still alone, and then it ends, and I look back, he's still by himself. And I feel the Lord telling me so strong to go invite him, and I keep telling him, like, every time I look back, I'm like, Lord, no, I don't want to. I'm okay, thank you though. And finally, I couldn't, I had to, because my heart was beating so hard. I felt like everyone could see it coming through my chest. I was like, okay, I get it, I'll go. I went and talked to him. I was like, hey, are you sitting by yourself? He's like, yeah. I said, do you want to come sit with my life group? And he said, yeah. And so he came and sat with us and started attending. And I really, I didn't think anything of it for a while. We would like hang out in our group, and we never hung out like one-on-one. And then one time we were helping a guy in our group move, And I did get a little bit of alone time with Kevin. Like, I think we were running back and forth, like unloading something. I don't know what we were doing, but I remember thinking, wow, he's awesome. He's really awesome. This is like what I've always envisioned my husband being, like this godly man who's respectful and funny. And so
you did have a vision in your head of like what you wanted.
Yeah, I just didn't think it was attainable. And so I remember I was carpooling with one of my other friends, and on the way back to her car, I was like, I'm not saying I like Kevin, I'm just saying that I want to marry him. She's like, you like Kevin. So we started hanging out, and I knew we were going to get married, like, from that moment. So, yeah. Now we're married. We have a little baby.
Oh, it's so crazy.
Yeah, we've been married. Our 2-year anniversary was this past April. So.
And you guys really never fight.
We have, like, little arguments, but we both know that ultimately we have the same goal, and we don't want to fight with each other. So we're both really good at admitting when we're wrong and saying sorry, because we don't want to be fighting. We both know, like, we're on the same team, and so why would you fight your teammate?
Right.
So.
Which makes sense. It's just like, I know my past and your past, like it felt like all I did every day of my life was fight.
Oh, me too.
So was that so weird to you? Like, when you guys weren't fighting? Like, you're like, what's happening here?
No, but I did have to get used to someone who wanted to discuss why we were fighting. It's been an adjustment in the beginning, getting used to someone who wants to talk about why we're disagreeing instead of, like, ignore me for days and not talk to me and give me silent treatment. Right. So I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how a relationship is supposed to be. This is how a normal relationship functions. So we just tell each other how we're feeling, and then it's resolved before it gets big. Like, we've never really had a big fight. And if it has started to get big at all, we've discussed, like, hey, how can I make you feel better in that moment? Like, because it's hard to swallow your pride and admit when you're wrong. So if I can't say that, what can I do? And so he's like, just give me a hug. And so there's been times where I'm like, oh, I don't really like you right now, but I'm going to give you a hug anyway. And so you can't yell at each other when you're hugging or holding hands. And so that instantly diffuses it. We just know, we love each other and we're fighting for the same thing, so we're not going to fight each other.
Right. Yeah. And I think just like, both of you are rooted in God, like, have a relationship with God. You guys pray every morning too?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
On the way to work, yeah. He calls me and we pray together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, like, you guys want it to work. Like, you want to be teammates.
Yeah.
And I know that in my past relationships, it, like, felt like we were enemies, like, butting heads all the time about everything. So I think that's good. Just going into it, like, we want, like, you have to be on each other's team.
Absolutely.
You can't be opposing.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome. And then, yeah, like, dying to your flesh is hard. Like, when I'm, like, emotionally, like, mad, the last thing I want to do is sit there and hug someone.
Yep.
But it does something.
Yep.
It triggers something where you, like, let your guard down.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we both know we don't want to be fighting. I mean, we love each other, so. And honestly, every single fight, it's not even really a fight. Anytime we have a disagreement, it's so stupid. Like, I wanted him to pick up my Target order, and he didn't want to, but he did it anyway. And then he was mad, and then I was mad. And so it's like, sometimes I'm like, why are we even... Are you hungry? Do you need to eat? Okay, let's eat, and then we'll talk. And then after we eat, most of the time we're just like, are you hungry? Do you need to eat? And then after we eat, we talk, and we're like, I was just hungry. I had a low blood sugar. I'm really sorry. Sorry, I was grouchy.
Hangry is a real thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's funny. Well, thank you for coming to my couch and being on my show. You guys are truly amazing. And maybe we'll do, like, a part 2, just to, like, maybe you can give tips and tricks on, like, what healthy behavior, like, looks like.
Sure.
Because I don't, like, you get just stuck in dysfunction, and you think that like, your dysfunctional relationships, you just think that that's just how it is. That's just how relationships are. And then I see your guys's, and anytime I've been, like, lonely while I've been single, like, it's just such a good example to see, because you guys are truly, like, so sweet to each other.
Thank you.
And so, definitely, like, pulls me, like, it just sets the bar high as to, like, what I want for my life. So
I do have one tip my mom gave me.
Okay.
She said, your spouse deserves your best, and so, like, when you come home at the end of the day after a hard day of work, they still deserve your best. They don't deserve what you have left. And so there's been so many times where I'm driving home, like, Lord, please help me to have grace, because I know I'm in a crap mood, and I need to be nice to Kevin. He doesn't deserve this. He deserves my best. Like, everything I exhausted all day, like, I need I need you to help me. Like, he deserves everything that I have. And so just keeping that in mind, like, even if I'm tired, even if I am grouchy, like, Kevin doesn't deserve that. He always deserves my best. And so just being really mindful of my attitude and just trying to always treat him with love and respect.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So self-care is important.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you feel like you're grouchy, just say a quick prayer.
That's awesome. Well, that's a wrap. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
That was fun.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.